Hi, Cardinals. It's Miss Vigna. I'm here at home in my library. And as you know, Cardinals, my office has so many books. And I brought home lots of my books from my office before we all came home for a little while. One of the books I was sure to bring is called The Year I Didn't Go to School. It's written and illustrated by Giselle Potter. I brought this book home because I use it for lots of different lessons with students and with teachers. And for example, I use it to help teach students personal narrative and also how to keep a journal. And I wanted to read it to you because it's called The Year I Didn't Go to School, which is a pretty unusual circumstance. And I feel like you might have some connections to that right now in your lives. So enjoy. Happy reading. The Year I Didn't Go to School. When I was 7, I didn't go to school for a whole year. Instead, I went away to Italy with my parents, my little sister Chloe, 4 huge steamer trunks filled with puppets, masks, and musical instruments, my stuffed panda Samantha, and a journal to keep track of all that happened. Our own tiny theater company, the Mystic Paper Beasts, was going on tour. With a sad heart, I said goodbye to Alice and Fuller. They're my grandparents, but we've always called them by their real names. In the airport, Fuller danced a farewell dance, waving his hands like fluttering butterflies and springing from one slipper to another. I looked down at my shoes and swallowed the big lumps in my throat so no one would know I was scared to go. After a long plane ride, we arrived in Italy, the country that's shaped like a boot. Tiny cars filled with big families zoomed every which way. Big men drank coffee from tiny cups, and the air was full of new smells. At a market, Mom bought us fruit, all wrapped in pretty papers. I ate the fruit and saved the wrappers to glue in my journal later. Meanwhile, Dad loaded our trunks into an old wooden carnival truck he'd bought. We'd painted clouds, birds, and the mystic paper beasts on the side of it. At last, we were on our way. We did our first show in the middle of the bustling city of Florence. Dad shouted, "Hear ye, signore e signori, ladies and gentlemen. Viene guardare un spettacolo in la piazza. Come see a play in the piazza. Un cerco di maschera, a circus of masks, per tutti le gente, for everyone." He was a stork on stilts with Chloe on his shoulders, and I followed as a panda beating a drum. While an audience gathered, Mom played some music that could make you dizzy, called a tarantella, on her accordion. Suddenly, out of nowhere, 2 policemen marched right up and started scolding us in Italian. I held Chloe's hand and stood there pretending I wasn't scared, while Mom and Dad scurried around packing our trunks. We didn't have a permit, and so we had to leave. Off we sped in our huge carnival truck, the Italian streets growing narrower and narrower, until we were stuck between 2 buildings. As we struggled to get unstuck, the men at a sidewalk cafe peered over their newspapers to watch the show. Why don't they help? I wondered out loud. Just then, 3 nuns dashed towards us, flashing disapproving eyes at the men. Together, everyone shoved and pushed and shoved, while Mom steered our truck free. I wrote in my journal, "The truck is on its way. Have you anything to say? Hooray! Hooray! The nuns have saved the day, and now we'll do our play." That night, like most others, after Chloe and I did our lessons, we slept inside the truck with curtains pulled across the windows and our shoes lined up side by side on the dashboard. We lay on the trunks padded with mattresses, except for Chloe. She was so small, she could fit in a pillowcase inside a drawer. In the middle of the night, I woke up and saw a raccoon looking at me, but it was only Chloe. Our next stop was Spoleto, a town perched above a deep valley, where we stayed in a house full of circus people. There was Eva, who could hang by her long hair and play the tuba, Pesia, who ate fire, Pepito, a parrot who cried like a baby, Silvano, who taught me and Chloe how to do a backflip, and a tiny man named Hans, who always made jokes I didn't understand. In town was a tiny building that had once been a church, and that's where we performed. My first role was as a bird that introduced my parents' act. I hated to speak in front of crowds, especially in other languages, but I could say anything behind a mask. Il ballo matrimoniale d'uccelli, I twittered, which means the wedding dance of the birds. On cue, Mom, a white dove in a wedding veil, floated in, playing the whistle and admiring herself in a mirror. Dad, a dodo bird, offered her gifts, a giant worm and a tiny house, that she refused. Finally, he offered her the world, which she happily accepted, and they waltzed away. Then Mom swooped back, carrying an enormous golden egg, and pop! Out came her two baby birds, whistling and fluttering. After every show, Dad would announce, "Now we will pass the hat." That's when Chloe and I would flutter into the audience with hats to collect money. "Grazie, grazie," we'd chirp over and over. I loved counting the heavy foreign coins with Dad. "Enough for dinner," he'd say, and we'd all head off to eat. The restaurants in Italy had paper tablecloths to draw on and bread you could roll up into little balls. I always ate spaghetti with a fried egg on top, while I watched people eating and laughing, their hands swirling in the air, just like my grandfather Fuller. On the tablecloth, I made a list of the words I had learned in Italian. Io sono Gisela, I spaghetti con burro, panda, uovo al tegame, gelato, uccelli, due bambine, scarpe, ciao. Our next stop was Assisi, a town that looks like a hat on a hill. We ate roasted chestnuts in newspaper cones, and Mom bought me and Chloe each a pair of cowboy boots. They were stiff and smelled smoky. As we marched proudly around the piazza, all the pigeons flew up at our stomping command. Then suddenly I heard, "Yip, yip, yip," followed by, "Ah!" A dog the color of dirty water had bitten Chloe. I guess she'd been watching her boots too much and stepped right on the dog's tail. Mom wrapped Chloe up in her coat and rocked her crying away. Chloe had to get a rabies shot in a scary green hospital. One afternoon, while we were having a picnic, Chloe and I found a shiny red purse. I put it over my shoulder and wiggled my hips from side to side like a fancy lady. "Signori e signori, look at my new purse," I shouted. But inside we found a card with Signora Carlotta printed on it and an address. Mom made us track the card person down and return her purse. Carlotta was so happy that she invited us to a party at her pizza garden. We ate little pizzas with thin crusts until our bellies puffed up and watched people dancing under the sparkly lights. Rome was our last stop. Late at night, we performed in an open-air theater in the rain. When it was time for Chloe to be a monkey, "Where's Chloe?" Mom asked. "Where's Chloe?" Dad yelled, his eyes wide. Under the pile of bird masks, peacock feathers, cloth worms, and a wedding dress, I found her asleep in her monkey costume, holding a smashed banana. "Quick, wake up!" I whispered, shaking her, and pushed her on stage where the lights were bright and the audience was a sea of scary black umbrellas. She ran backstage again, sobbing. Mom whispered quick, panicky words to me, and suddenly I was on stage, wearing Chloe's tiny monkey mask upside down, still hot and wet with tears, feeling dizzy and doing somersaults without being able to see. But now it was time for the grand finale. Hold on to the edge of your seats, folks. Before your very eyes I will tame 2 fierce, angry lions to be as harmless as sweet little girls, Dad announced as he cracked his whip. And guess who appeared? Chloe, her tears dried, leaped through his hoop and clawed at the air, making tiny roars. I was right behind. Dad swept us up onto his shoulders and we removed our masks. Ta-da! "Always smile when you bow," I heard Dad's words in my head. Afterward, a woman with bright lips gave Chloe and me a box of pastries. "You are the smallest, bravest actresses I have ever seen," she gushed. We felt shy and proud at the same time. The night before we went home, I couldn't sleep. I had gotten used to our big old truck and waking up in my funny bed to see a different place out the window every morning. I would miss smelling new smells and eating gelato. School, so far away, seemed boring and hard. I couldn't wait to see Alice and Fuller. But what if they didn't even recognize me? But there they were, waving as we got off the plane. Fuller took off his hat and danced a funny greeting dance with tears in his eyes, and Alice hugged me tight. It almost seemed like I had never left until I looked down at my cowboy boots and thought of all the places they had been. The end. I hope you enjoyed The Year I Didn't Go to School. There are a couple extra things in the book that I want to show you before I sign off. The first thing I want to share with you is that this book has a special part called an author's note. It's often at the very beginning of a book, or sometimes you'll find it at the very end of a book. And it's usually included when the author has something extra that they want to tell their reader. So let's hear what Giselle Potter wants to share with us. Here's her author's note. When I was 3 years old, my parents started a puppet theater company named the Mystic Paper Beasts. Mystic, partly after Mystic, Connecticut, the town where it all began, and Paper Beasts because we made our masks and puppets out of papier-mâché, also known as paper mache. My dad sculpted and Mom painted. Sometimes I helped her. After a few years of performing with friends, Mom and Dad decided it would be easier to have a family troupe, and the four of us went on tour. We went to Italy, a place far from Mystic, and I kept a journal about all of our adventures. You can see some of it on the end papers of this book. I'm going to show you in a second. When I was 18, my parents got divorced and my sister Chloe and I weren't living at home anymore, so the family theater ended. But to this day, my dad and his wife Maria continue to perform with their own version of the Mystic Paper Beasts. I'm now married to Kier, who makes tiny carved wooden puppets, and sometimes I help with his performances. So she mentioned that you can see some of her journal, her actual journal, the one that she talks about in this book. You can see it on the end papers. The end papers are those parts that are just on the inside, front, and back covers of books. So you can see some of her drawings and some of her actual writing in her 7-year-old handwriting. Here's a wrapper from a fruit. I think this is also from a fruit, a little sticker. There's even more on the back end papers. Let's take a look. Remember that scene where she said she wrote all of the Italian words that she knew on the paper tablecloth at the restaurant? This is it. This is the actual, she must have torn it from the table and pasted it into her journal. More fruit labels. Oh man, I love this book so much. I hope that you did too. It gave me a chance to practice my Italian. I noticed as I was reading that my Italian dictionary from school when I learned Italian is right there. One reason I love this book. One of the many reasons. I hope that you did too. Happy reading.